This hour, Governor Greg Abbott has set a runoff date for the special election for Texas' 18th Congressional District. That date, January 31st. We'll discuss this and more in today's top stories. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. We'll also be joined by former U.S. Representative Chris Bell, who will discuss his run for Texas governor.
And I'm Rick Billingsley. We'll also chat with a member of the Mars Society, an organization dedicated to the human exploration and settlement of the planet Mars.
Also, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And don't forget, you can watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is extending a ceremonial welcome to Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at a level of a state visit. The last time MBS visited was in 2018, months before Saudi agents killed Washington Post columnist and critic Jamal Khashoggi, and U.S. intelligence later determined that Prince Mohammed had likely ordered the hit. Prince Mohammed has long denied involvement and for a time was considered an outcast by many world leaders, but he has since become a powerful influence. President Trump underscored that in his visit to Saudi Arabia in May. And today, both men are set to announce a series of pacts ranging from critical minerals to defense. NPR's Abbott reports on what Prince Mohammed is hoping to get from this visit.
The biggest deal that's being eyed right now by Prince Mohammed bin Salman isn't actually more billions in weapons sales. He has enough of those. What he wants is a U.S. guarantee against a range of threats in the region, and that means a coveted U.S. defense pact similar to the one Trump signed with Qatar recently after it was attacked by both Iran and Israel over the summer. And this is not a defense treaty, so it doesn't need Congress to approve it, and it is less binding. But it does offer Saudi Arabia guarantees that the U.S. would use military measures if necessary to respond if it's attacked.
NPR's Abbott reporting. On Capitol Hill, the House is expected to vote this afternoon to compel the Justice Department to release all of its files on the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Here's NPR's Barbara Sprant.
Over the weekend, President Trump encouraged House Republicans to support a measure that would release all unclassified files related to Jeffrey Epstein, who died by suicide in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. That's a major reversal for the president, who's been encouraging Republicans to drop the matter. The administration has already released thousands of files to the House Oversight Committee, but there remain even more that haven't been made public. Should the House pass the measure, its fate is still not clear in the Senate. If it passes both chambers, the president says he'll sign it. Barbara Sprint, NPR News, the Capitol.
The mayor of Raleigh, North Carolina, says immigration officials are now launching operations in her city. WUNC's Bradley George reports.
Raleigh Mayor Janet Cowell says she doesn't know how long the operation will last. She says crime is down in North Carolina's capital city and a federal presence is not needed. In a statement, Cowell asks Raleigh residents to, quote, remember our values and maintain peace and respect through any upcoming challenges. Border Patrol and ICE agents began a sweep through Charlotte over the weekend. The Department of Homeland Security has said it's focusing on North Carolina because of what it calls sanctuary policies that it says limit cooperation between local authorities and immigration agents.
Bradley George reporting. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. Investigators are continuing to look into what caused a fire at a decommissioned power plant in the Texas City area over the weekend. The blaze occurred at the old PHR plant on Highway 146. Officials are saying it's highly unlikely that the plant would spontaneously combust. Texas City's fire marshal told ABC 13 that they're looking into every possible scenario, including suspicious activity. We'll keep you updated on the investigation here on News 88.7. You can also read the full story on our website, houstonpublicmedia.org. Harris County leaders are weighing a plan to use artificial intelligence technology to speed up the construction permitting process. News 88.7's Sarah Gruno reports.
County officials say that using AI software will result in a faster and more accurate permitting process for new construction projects. Samuel Pena with the Office of the County Engineer said that the AI implementation will act as a precursor.
This is going to be essentially an automated completeness screening for the permits before it goes to a person to do the actual review. We're hoping that it cuts down in the number of times that we go back and forth with the applicant to ensure that it's complete. The application is complete before we review it.
Officials with the county's engineering department also mentioned the city of Austin and Los Angeles County rolling out similar AI programs for new building plans. Harris County commissioners approved a 2-year implementation of the AI programs during Commissioners Court last week. I'm Sarah Gruno, News 88.7.
A recent study has found that new and expanding petrochemical facilities are concentrated in low-income neighborhoods and communities of color. Researchers at Texas Southern University used a screening tool from the EPA to evaluate the areas around the facilities. They found that the proposed facilities were being built in areas that are already struggling with air pollution. Robert Bullard is one of the study's authors.
The build-out basically concentrate on areas that are already having major environmental challenges.
The study found that Harris and Jefferson counties have the most proposed new or expanding facilities. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include BetterHelp, committed to helping clients with issues ranging from relationship challenges and goal setting to grief and depression. Learn more at betterhelp.com/public. This is NPR.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston. Hello
We made it to Tuesday.
Yes. What is the date?
Today is November 18th, 2025. We are flying through this month.
You better get that Christmas shopping done soon.
That's right.
Not
budding
till
up
Black
to it.
Friday.
Well, we were already talking about
Ernie,
Thanksgiving, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, we've been talking all about our Thanksgiving plans, and we'd love to hear yours. What are your Thanksgiving rituals? Are you a cranberry sauce type person? Can your food touch? I know some people don't want their food touching.
Your cranberry sauce. Does it have to be the berries, maybe in a gel, not but berry, or is it that molded from the can, slice it, no bumps, just jelly?
Well, I love the canned, molded, Welch's, whatever it is, cranberry, the mold where you just plop. Love
it's
that.
on the plate and you slice it.
My mother-in-law makes this fabulous cranberry sauce with, like the zested orange and real cranberries. But she'll slice up a little can for me.
I say black. Okay, Ernie.
Of course you would.
Ernie and I did this while you were gone, as a matter of fact.
Y'all do?
Okay, white meat, dark meat.
Ooh, so y'all already did this. Okay.
Oh, y'all did it?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We did it when you were gone.
Oh, okay.
So white meat, dark meat.
White meat.
Dark meat.
White meat. This year, actually, we're making just turkey breasts. We bought them separate.
I feel like that would be a little dry, though.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Brown gravy, white gravy.
Brown gravy on my turkey.
White gravy.
Interesting.
Turkey gravy, which is kind of beige.
Dressing or stuffing?
Ooh, dressing.
Dressing. Good.
Dressing.
No
dressing.
Cranberry.
Stovetop stuffing.
Sweet potatoes, mashed potatoes. You can only pick one.
Oh, that's not fair.
Oh, gosh.
I know, because we all have both.
Yeah.
I would probably have to go with sweet potato.
Me too.
Yeah.
Sweet green bean casserole, everybody?
Green bean casserole.
Yeah, it depends. You know, I don't want it once you start putting cream of mushroom in it and all of that. I want my green beansy, maybe a creamy to it, but no mushroom.
No, I like the end cap at the aisle where you can get everything. You get the libbies, the onions, everything. You get it all right there at the end of the aisle.
Yes. Okay. So do you like to mix the flavors, or are you you don't want the flavors to touch on your plate?
Oh, no, I'll eat everything.
Yeah, I feel like the perfect Thanksgiving bite is a ratio of a little bit of sweet, a little bit of savory.
I have a recipe for a shepherd's pie, but with all Thanksgiving foods.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a mashed potato, stuffing, the green bean, the corn, the turkey, and you bake it in the oven. And one year I made like 10 of them and handed them out to people that I knew either weren't getting to Thanksgivings or something. So you had a whole, each piece of the casserole was your Thanksgiving dinner.
Well, the other thing is now what's varying in style, or I think is trending right now in the food and culinary world, is the Thanksgiving sandwich.
Well, rolls.
What you do afterwards with all of your leftovers.
Sister Schubert.
You make
There's no other roll in the world.
I've never think I've ever
Sister
had
Schubert rolls you haven't had?
No.
Oh
my,
Celeste.
Okay, I know.
You
not
can
living.
get them, I think, anywhere. If you can get them at Aldi's, you can get them anywhere.
Yeah, you can get them pretty much anywhere.
Well, growing up, we used to always go to my mom's hometown in Mexico called General Terán. It's a very small town right outside of Monterrey, Mexico. And I always thought Thanksgiving was just something every country celebrated.
Oh, yeah.
Here we are on Thursday.
And then I realized, okay.
Well, Thanksgiving foods, always to have the whole bird. I never am really a big turkey fan. We talked about this a little bit
I'm
before.
not either.
I'm a sides guy. I love all the sides. So the day after Thanksgiving, I always make an entire second Thanksgiving dinner because I want all the leftovers and I want the sides. I put a turkey, but really it's just all the sides.
Yeah. I guess my thought is I'm not a big turkey on a regular day, but on Thanksgiving, I want a
But isn't
big,
that weird?
juicy
Why don't
slice of
we
turkey.
eat turkey at other times? It's
We were friends with a couple that they loved to cook, and he always did a Thanksgiving in July.
Oh.
Which is a little weird, but it was delicious. And then we don't do Christmas. We do like, Whataburger.
Really?
We don't. No, growing up, my mom did a lot. But
like a ham, or like a breakfast casserole.
We just repeat Thanksgiving on Christmas. Like we do another turkey, and it's all the same size.
Well, we have friends who invite us for Christmas dinner, and that's where we go.
Yeah.
Whatever they're serving,
also
you're
tamales.
eating.
Victor and Bill do it all.
Tamales are a big Christmas for us. We have tamales during Christmas.
Oh, I love tamales at
yes,
Christmas.
I'm
Yeah.
going to
you
bring
make
you the
them?
best. I don't. They're
Come
just
on,
some
now you got
things
the kids
like
and
tortilla.
you, and bring your parents in.
No,
your
we're
in-laws,
not.
You can all sit and wrap them.
No, we don't do. That's not our
Berry
tradition.
Hill. Remember Berry Hill? I don't see
Yes.
They used to do turkey tamales at Thanksgiving.
Oh, yum.
Yeah, that was good.
Ooh, a turkey tamale with a little bit of cranberry sauce on it?
No cranberry. Will you get
that's
over
right.
that?
You don't like the cranberry. I do like ketchup
I don't know
on
how
my
we got
tamales.
into all of this. It's not Thanksgiving yet. It's going to burn
still
up
have a
everything we
whole-
talk
I
about
know.
next week
I
if we
know.
talk about it all now. But there is a lot going on out there. Really quickly before we get to that,
Weather.
Frank, yes, I want to know weather, and I'm still looking at Thanksgiving. You've got me a little scared.
Forecast is still 86 for today. The record high is 86 for today.
Oh.
So record heat continues, although it felt pretty good yesterday. We walked the park. It was good. So it felt nice. Anyway, so there's that. There's a good chance of some heavy rain on Thursday, this Thursday. And then I think the next front will get through here on Wednesday of next week.
See, that's what you had me scared about.
Well, that should get out of here. It should get out of here.
If it lingers, we could have a
lingers,
soggy
but
Thanksgiving.
You know what? The fronts have been pretty progressive. Even though the model has been lingering them, they really haven't lingered. They kind of moved on through. So let's hope that the trend continues.
All right. Thank you for that, Frank. And now, Celeste, what I'm going to thank you for is the headlines.
Governor Greg Abbott has set January 31st as the date of the special election runoff for Texas' 18th congressional district, meaning the Houston-based seat will remain vacant for over 2 more months. Harris County Attorney Christian Menifee and former Houston City Council member Amanda Edwards, both Democrats, were the top 2 finishers in the November 4th special election, running ahead of the 16-candidate field, but both falling well short of the 50% threshold needed to avoid a runoff. Menifee finished first with 28.9% of the vote, with Edwards in a close second at 25.6%. The January winner will go to Washington to serve out the remainder of former Democratic Representative Sylvester Turner's term. Turner passed away in March, 2 months after taking office, and less than a year after the district's longtime Congresswoman, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, died in 2024. The January 31st date will also leave little time for the winners to pivot to the March 3rd primary, which will effectively decide the district's representative for the term beginning in 2027. What do you think about the election date? Is it too close to the primary? Is it fair to the candidates and to the people of District 18? Now is the time to join us on Hello Houston. Give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870.
It is kind of crazy what's been going on with the 18th and them having representation. Just to clarify so people understand, either of these two candidates, once they win this runoff election, they will serve until the end of December. So they do have that many months ahead of them. The problem is, though, a month and month and change later, they're going to have the primary to decide who's going to run to fill the seat for the following term that starts in January. So they're going to be in, at least if they're sworn in, depending on how quickly they're sworn in, they're going to be in office 4 weeks before they have to be in another election if they're trying to retain the seat. And then they've got to be running for the next election coming. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, so they're running basically in 2 elections.
They're running to run.
They're running in 2 elections at the same time.
And that zaps your strength of actually getting to govern and to work for the people of your district. So the way it has been pushed, and again, this 31st date was, again, the governor pushing it as far as he possibly could down the line still.
What a surprise. They just got to hope for name recognition to keep them going and incumbency. So that whoever wins at the end of January can just kind of win in March and then win again next November.
And then you've got the redistricting going on.
Well,
so they may be running.
In effect by
it
then?
Would be then, if it is, it will be for March's primary. So they could be filling into a seat that may not exist when the next term happens. I mean, it's just a mess. And I feel sorry for people in the 18th. I'm one of you. And it's like we haven't had representation and we don't know where we're going to be and who's going to represent us.
And we've talked a lot about the area of District 18, and that includes downtown, the greater 5th Ward, Acres Home, and the area around George Bush Intercontinental Airport. And, the governor has said that he delayed the election because Harris County has a history of election management issues, and he wanted to give Harris County extra time to prepare.
So kind.
Yeah.
So helpful.
They do such a
thoughtful job. But, if you look at it from a political standpoint, the move has been a big help to President Donald Trump. And we know that, without a replacement for Turner, Trump's big spending and tax cut package in the summer, passed by 1 vote. So
wonder who that one missing vote was.
District 18.
There you go. I will say, too, when you talk about the numbers and the percentages of what Menifee got and what Edwards got, there is still approximately 55% of the vote out there, because if you add those two together, the rest of it is sitting there. So either candidate could do this now. And so it's really a fascinating race. It's not like somebody who just shone so bright in the first election that it was a clear-cut winner.
Well, don't you think a lot of the election ads right now would get really kind of lost in the whole holiday thing?
Oh, it is. It's
1,000%.
So they're going to wait till January when everybody gets to take a breath.
I mean, in one way, that could be helpful because we have the city council election going in December.
Right.
And so waiting till January for this May, it's
they'll
getting
blitz.
people out.
And and also, Ernie, you might remember this. Al Green announced he's running. So would he be running...
He has announced if the new maps go into effect, he would be running in the 18th in March in the primary against probably whoever wins in
the special election.
It's going to get very confusing. Yeah.
Okay.
And the maps, as we talked about yesterday on the show, are still being looked at by courts and whether they're legal. The current map we have, the new map that's proposed, we don't know what's going to happen.
I will say, though, I do think that the one silver lining of all of this is that both Christian Menifee and Amanda Edwards, I think, are two bright candidates.
Yeah, we have good candidates.
We have great candidates, and I'm happy to see that District 18 is going to have some really great representation.
But it could be crazy that one of them wins, and then one of them is going to be running against Al Green
potentially
in
Al
March.
Green.
Right. Or both of them may be back again.
Why would
I guess you could be back again.
Because you could...
Yeah,
it's going to be fun.
Jeez.
We're going to have to make a spreadsheet. We're going to have to do like a chart so people can know who's running where
yes, no.
and when.
Yes, and where and the dates and who is
and
running.
You say about good candidates also when you look back at the City Hall race for City Council that's going to have their runoff in December. I think it's December 13th. Again, two really competent, good candidates. We are very blessed in this region right now to have some really good candidates out there who, no matter how these races turn out, I think we will be well represented.
Yeah, they're very seasoned, all of them.
Yeah.
Speaking of the House.
Oh, is it time for my story?
I would get to it.
It's time for your headline.
Straightening out my paper. I got a lot to tell you.
Okay,
if
roll up
you've
your
been in a
sleeves.
cave, you don't know this story, but if you've been among the living, you probably have heard. The U.S. House is set for a pivotal vote today, one that could finally force the release of the remaining Jeffrey Epstein case files, at least the first step on the path to releasing them. Using a rare discharge petition, lawmakers have pushed the Epstein Files Transparency Act to the floor, sidestepping months of stalled leadership action. And in a notable turnaround, President Trump now says he'll sign the bill if it reaches his desk, despite previously opposing the measure. Some Epstein-related files have surfaced already, although through recent committee disclosures. But supporters insist far more remain hidden, especially in sealed court records they say could answer long-standing questions. Survivors and advocates are demanding full transparency, while also warning that even if the bill passes the administration, the president's office could still use legal loopholes to keep certain materials private. And this comes after Donald Trump has directed the Justice Department to investigate the Epstein's ties to prominent Democrats, raising new concerns that those inquiries could become grounds for withholding the documents. Are you following all of this? It gets crazy because today, speaking outside the Capitol alongside Epstein survivors, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has been called a traitor by the president for being one of the most vocal Republicans calling for the release of all the files, had this to say.
Let me tell you what a traitor is. A traitor is an American that serves foreign countries and themselves. A patriot is an American that serves the United States of America and Americans like the women standing behind me.
The House vote is expected to take place at 1 p.m. Texas time today. So what are your thoughts on this vote and the shifting position of the president on this matter? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. I've talked enough. Now it's your guys' turn.
Well, let's go back to the basics. The discharge petition, in case people don't understand, is when enough members of the House say, we don't care if Mike Johnson is going to bring this up or not. We're bringing it up. You have to have 218 signatures, and it doesn't have to be, because Mike Johnson would never have brought it up.
The Speaker of the House sets the agenda for what's voted on, unless this petition, saying this
That's
enough
why it's
members
so rare,
vote.
but it's also why it's so powerful.
Yeah.
It's enough people saying, we don't care what the head guy thinks or says or advises. We think it's important enough to bring it up. And now it looks like there's going to be a huge number of people. That may be a real impetus in the Senate, where it goes next, for them to say, okay, let's not fight about this. Let's just send it to Trump and see if he signs it, and we'll be done with it.
Yeah. The weird ripple in all of this, though, or wrinkle, is that now Speaker Johnson was out. Yesterday, he was kind of speaking there, let's just get this vote over with. But he took one more moment to say, this isn't needed, and I don't know why we're pushing it. The Democrats are doing this as a smoke. He definitely seems like he's coming down on the wrong side of history here, and people are going to remember this speech.
I don't know why he would do that. Why doesn't he, if the majority of the House members want to discharge this and vote on it, then why get your hands dirty?
Because he's trying to get alignment with the president. I mean, he's trying.
But the president has flip-flopped and said, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, but I mean, publicly, but behind scenes, the president saying, hey, look, everybody's looking to you. You get to speak on behalf of the, representing us as a speaker. You better make it sound like this is not that big of a deal.
It was just the end of last week. The president called Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room to get her to take her name off the discharge petition. So this new revelation of his supporting it seems interesting.
Yeah, because he couldn't get any of those women, God love them, to back down.
And listening to Marjorie Taylor Greene, I realized just from the basics, I do not hold grudges. But I am just I never in a million thought I'd be very proud of her coming out and finding solidarity with women and saying, hey, she really has been very vocal and consistent.
She listened to someone. I don't know who.
I
don't think it was her own conscience, but I think somebody sat her down and read her the Riot Act and said, look, this is where you need to be, especially if you're going to run for governor of Georgia.
Well, I think also from what she has said is the shooting of Charlie Kirk had, I think, was a aha moment for her, a wake-up moment that all this rhetoric that she was so, and she admits, was so in peddling.
Toxic was
that really
politics
it's more than just words, and that things are happening that are bad. And I think if I'm looking for her higher being, I think she thought, we've got to put the brakes on this. You know, it may be fun. It may be a game. We all say nasty things about each other. There are real world consequences, and somewhere it's got to stop.
As many Americans, I think,
perspective.
have felt that and are feeling that as we look at, you know, when you're really looking at the effects, when you just all of a sudden, we're going to shut the government down and we're going to start. Policy affects people on a very real level.
And has, especially the last month.
In the last month.
I think a lot of people, because even we had experts on our air, and they said, you know what, you're not going to feel this until late summer, early fall.
Mm-hmm.
This was when we were talking in April. And they were right. Sure enough, now we're starting to feel it.
Right.
I've got a lot more to say on that, but you know what? I think we're going to have a lot of opportunities to talk about this topic over the next few days, weeks, and, oh God, months.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Chris Bell, a former U.S. representative who announced he is running for governor. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Lenny Ambrose from St. Arnold Brewing Company, proud supporters of Houston Public Media. Right now, with your $60 donation, you can choose tickets to News and Brews. This member-exclusive event takes place February 17th. Enjoy a pint, connect with fellow NPR fans, and meet the Houston Public Media Newsroom in person. Select News and Brews tickets when you donate at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
You can listen to it today at 3 o'clock.
For hospitals looking to hire nurses and other workers from overseas, the H-1B visa fee has gone from $200 to $100,000.
They just simply cannot afford it. It's not sustainable. So at the moment, H-1B for healthcare workers is at a standstill.
I'm Kai Rizdal. That makes things complicated, especially for rural hospitals. More next time on Marketplace.
Marketplace coming up tonight at 6:30.
You can't tackle life's big challenges if you let the little ones get you down. That's why Houston Matters devotes the first Monday of each month to a sort of group moan session we call Houstonian Pet Peeves. It's a communal, cathartic experience, but not everyone can join us live at 9 a.m., and not every peeve occurs to you right then and there. That's okay. We welcome your gripes about life in Houston anytime at talk@houstonmatters.org.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, Ken Burns' series The American Revolution continues. After the Americans abandoned New York City, Washington's army regroups before attacking an outpost in Trenton. Tonight at 7 on TV8.
Support comes from GenPro, a Houston-based home generator service providing power to homes during unexpected outages. More information at genpro.com. or by calling 713-597-3521.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Last week, in front of the Texas Capitol, former U.S. Representative Chris Bell announced that he would be entering next year's governor's race. He is the latest Democratic candidate to announce their bid for governor. To tell us more about his platform and why he's decided to enter this race, please welcome Chris Bell to the show. Chris, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
If you want to join the conversation, if you've got questions, comments, thoughts, give us a call or text 713-440-8870.
Mr. Bell, Governor Abbott had more than $87 million in his campaign account at the end of June. He has won all three of his previous gubernatorial races by double digits. Do you have what it takes to go up against him and actually win?
Absolutely.
Where's your money, Chris?
In my pocket, mainly. And that's a problem because it's just loose change. And it's certainly not $87 million. But money isn't everything. And obviously what money really does in politics is gives you an opportunity to get your name out. And Greg Abbott has already gotten his name out, and that's his problem. People know Greg Abbott, and they don't like the direction the state's moving, and his approval rating is at its lowest point in his entire governorship, down to 39% with 50% disapproving. And that's not really where you want to be, especially when you're asking people to hang around for another 4 years, which would be unprecedented. And I compared him to Cousin Eddie on National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, that he's just a guest that won't leave. And it's time to get that old RV out of the governor's mansion driveway and move on so we can move in a more positive direction. And I think people are looking for change, and I think they're going to want someone with experience and someone who will stand up and fight and has a proven record of doing that. And I do, and that's why I jumped in the race.
Where do you see his weakest points?
I'm sorry?
Where do you see his weakest points?
His?
Yeah, Abbott's.
The corruption, mainly, and I think people are sick and tired of it, seeing, huge no-bid contracts being handed out to people who've given huge contributions to his campaign, what we watch with private school vouchers, that being really an edict from billionaires who want to see kids moving out of public schools and into private schools. And some people say that really want to see Texas become a theocracy, which scares the hell out of me. And that is an issue that I have watched closely even before I got into politics. For some reason, the whole idea of choice in public schools has always fascinated me. And I always wanted to see it within the public school system, because I do think it can be powerful for a parent to be able to move their child out of an underperforming school to a high-performing school. But I think it should be within the public school system. And the way to improve education in Texas is not to get kids out of public schools and then try and get more and more into private schools. It's improving public schools. And I think that is going to be an issue that people are really going to pay a lot of attention to, because anyone who's watched the school system, Celeste, I think you have school-age children still, recognizes that a lot of things in public school education are very antiquated. Our models are very, very old. And we need to wake up and look at that. Are there modern ways and more innovative ways to teach children in this day and age? And that's what I've been talking about a long time, and I've been talking about a lot during this campaign.
I know we'll get into a lot more of your platform. And as a Democrat, I assume you've been very disappointed with a lot of things that have been going on in state government. I'm curious, what was the moment that struck you that said, I'm going to enter this race? Was there a particular moment where you had said, I've had enough of the direction it's going, and I'm the one who can step in and make a change?
It's a great question. I have jumped into races too fast before in the past, and I was not ever going to make that mistake again. And this has been a long, thought-out process and discussions with a whole lot of people. But it really was the private school voucher issue. Living in a rural area now, seeing how important the Brenham Public School District is to Washington County, and how it really brings the community together. And that's not just in Brenham. That's in a lot of small towns all across the state of Texas. And I thought, there's just no way, because they don't want that. They don't have the number of private schools that you have in Houston or Dallas or Fort Worth and major metropolitan areas. And to see just how that was driven forward by folks with a bunch of money was really offensive to me. And that was sort of the last straw. I'm certainly not new to this, and I know that money has played an outweighed role in Texas politics for a long time, but it's time to do something about it. And that's what I did when I was on city council, when I saw that there were reforms that needed to be made in terms of ethics. I put those in motion as the chair of the ethics committee. When I was serving in Congress with one of the most, the most corrupt politician at that time in all of America, Tom DeLay, and a so-called truce being in place where members of Congress weren't supposed to file ethics complaints, I said, baloney. I mean, that wasn't written down anywhere. It was an unwritten truce. And I said, he needs to be called on the carpet. And I did. And that's what I'm talking about when I say people want someone who will stand up and fight and take on all of this head on. And it's really interesting, because ethics reform is not that difficult if you have someone who's willing to push forward the reforms. But what politicians like to do, there's nothing to vote on here, so we can just keep acting the way we always have. Well, you cannot look at the Texas system and say, hey, that's a really good system. Let's not place any limits on campaign contributions whatsoever. That's absurd. And I think people understand that.
You did pretty well against Rick Perry. I mean, I think the numbers are like 30% to 38%.
I think it was 39 to 30. It was about a 9-point spread, and the closest since Richards.
That's pretty good against Rick Perry. So what's your game plan up against Abbott? Can you take some of what you used against, because they're very different candidates. Perry was just kind of in the days when the lieutenant governor had all the power and the governor really didn't. And now it seems to me like the governor has as much power as the governor wants. So what's the game plan going to be against Abbott? Pull some from Perry or completely different?
Well, I think it'll be a very different race, and it's interesting because we find ourselves in very different eras. And I was thinking about it today on the way over. We didn't even have social media, really. I mean, it was just sort of trickling out back in 2006, and now social media is overwhelming. And I think that was a fascinating election. I learned so much, and I learned so much about Texas, and that is another reason that I think that I will be perfectly positioned. I think folks want a more moderate governor, someone who will be reasonable, who's able to work with the other side, something I've always demonstrated throughout my public life. And we've got to get past always thinking that we're right. And I'm disappointed in Greg Abbott. I've known him a long time since he was on the bench. Obviously, I'm a lawyer. I knew him back when I was covering the courthouse for KTRH Radio. So I've known him a very long time, and he was very affable, easy to get along with judge. But it's almost as if he's not comfortable in his own skin, and that being chased by Dan Patrick the whole time he's been in office, trying to be more and more and more conservative. And it's almost taken on a level of meanness at time, and it's all political calculation. You all earlier were talking about the 18th congressional district. Well, look at the way that's been handled. Sylvester Turner, that seat has been open now. It will be open for over a year. We're supposed to have a representative government, and that's just a level of kind of crude politics that, in my opinion, isn't necessary.
Do you think he'll even debate?
Sorry?
Do you think Greg Abbott will even debate whoever's running against him?
Will he debate?
Yeah, because he hasn't in the past.
Well, I would hope so. And, of course, if he feels threatened, then he'll debate. He'll be anxious to debate. And that's another thing. I probably have more televised debate experience than anyone in Texas, given the nature of the races I've run for governor, for mayor, things where you have televised debates. And it's interesting because that's not easy. All of y'all have been on television a lot. And I was on television a little bit myself, but it's still a whole different experience. Yeah. And you learn how to do it, and oftentimes that kind of experience helps. So I certainly would love to debate Greg Abbott.
To get to that point, you've got to get the nomination, and I'm guessing at this point for a Democrat to win in the state, it has to have unity of all the Democrats behind that candidate to even have a chance to get forward. There are other people that want this position, not just you. Have you talked with the other candidates? What's the understanding? How aggressive are your campaigns going to be against each other? How much? Because you don't want to tear down if you need to build up. What's your plan at that point?
A lot of times the primaries will turn into family fights, and I would like to avoid that as much as possible. I think that Democrats in the state of Texas have been given a great choice when you look at the spectrum of politics. I would say that Gina Hinojosa, who I know not well but have known for a long time, and is much further probably to the left than I am. Andrew White is probably much further to the right than I am. And this is sort of sounding like Goldilocks, and I'm just right. But I'm in the middle, and I've always, been center left and socially progressive and fiscally conservative, and that will continue. And I think that gives a lot of folks, disaffected Republicans, independents, and Democrats, someone they can rally around.
On the scale of Mamdani to Newsom, where do you fall?
Well, it's just so interesting where, because I've been very disappointed in seeing the Democratic Party go further and further to the left and kind of over the cliff. And it was at a time when I thought that if we did moderate our views and move somewhat to the middle, there were a lot of people who were very upset after Donald Trump was elected in 2016. I think they would have been willing to look at the Democratic Party, but we really didn't give them much of an alternative there.
Mr. Bell, you mentioned being fiscally conservative, and Texas has one of the largest and fastest growing economies in the United States. And that's something that Governor Abbott has touted repeatedly, that how the economy has experienced such significant growth since he has been a governor. What is your vision, given the fact that Texas is massive, we have multiple industries? What is your vision for the state from an economic perspective?
We have the 8th largest economy in the entire world in the state of Texas, not just in the country, in the entire world. And yes, we are the most financially distressed state in the entire country based on the number of bankruptcies, both commercial and personal, based on the number of uninsured. And so we really have been creating the state of haves versus have-nots, and that is going to have to change. And the number of uninsured is something that is a horrific number, and we all know the hardships that brings. And I really want to focus, and I've been talking about it a long time, we have to do a better job on preventive care and neighborhood clinics. If cities can't afford to do that on their own, or counties can't afford to do that on their own, the state needs to be willing to step in and provide that type of funding. And I believe that type of care on the emergency room can no longer serve as the family physician or the neighborhood doctor. It's not cost effective. It makes no sense. And a lot of the things that people end up going to the emergency room for could probably be avoided. But those types of issues, and there's a lot of talk about affordability, and there needs to be, and states need to be looking at everything they can possibly do, the areas where we regulate, if we can keep electric bills down and frozen for a while, the things that are really eating at people who are living really month to month. Those are the types of things we need to be focused on, and not just the things that are going to impact maybe the top 1%.
Right.
In our state.
And we did get a question from YouTube that asks, how should the state's $24 billion budget surplus be allocated?
Well, that's a great question. I think there's going to have to be a lot of attention paid to infrastructure. Infrastructure is boring. I've never heard you all start off your show talking about, God, I heard about the best bridge project this morning.
Keep listening.
But I've given you an idea now. Yeah. Arnie will be coming in. God, no. But it is, it isn't sexy, and they're long-term projects, and we live in this era of age of immediate gratification. We don't want to wait long for that hamburger in the fast food line. We want to see results immediately. Well, infrastructure takes a while, and we can't keep doing infrastructure by tragedy. Can't wait for something horrific to happen before we say, gosh, we should have put in that alarm system in Kerr County. We should have done something about drainage over in Meyerland. These types of things we need to be spotting and addressing along the way. And we haven't been doing a very good job of that in Texas. So a lot of the money needs to go there. We also need to be mindful that you're not always going to have a surplus, and you want to have money left behind in those thinner times as well.
You said you had a discussion with other people about running. How to go with Allison, your wife?
Oh, she was just thrilled to pieces.
Yeah, she's like, who's this? No thanks, click.
No. Well, no, we're fine, and she's supportive, but she's been through a lot of this, and I get it. I'm just wired differently, I guess. Yeah. I've always been one to, if you get knocked down, you get back up, and losing elections isn't easy, but what's interesting about it, a lot of times you learn more from the ones you lose than sometimes the ones you win. Yeah. And so, like you mentioned, the governor's race in 2006, that was a fascinating race. And it was an education about Texas and getting to visit all the different areas and seeing how different Texas is in different geographic locations. It was fascinating, and I loved that race, and I loved the people I got to meet, and I'm hoping to have a similar experience this time around with a different result.
Oftentimes we in the cities forget about all those different areas that you're talking about. You visited all of them. A big concern for a lot of Texans, especially along the border, is border security. What are your thoughts and feelings on that and the way it's been handled to this point, and what would you do differently?
Well, we have to have a secure border, and I think opening up the border to the degree that the Biden administration did obviously was a step in the wrong direction. I've always advocated to use greater technology to guard wider swaths of the border so you can send messages down to Border Patrol agents. That requires that you have enough Border Patrol agents, and when you don't, they have to be replaced. And we need a pathway to citizenship. I think people are going to soon wake up to the fact, if they haven't already, that it's ridiculous to pretend you can just deport that many people without it having a significant impact, especially on a state like Texas, where they're part of the fabric of our state. And so certainly steps need to be made. And, we were talking about modernization, innovation earlier. That's a very antiquated system as well that is in desperate need of updating. But the truth of the matter is, and I heard this a long time ago, I think it was in the 2006 governor's race, and somebody told me from Laredo that as long as you have people, living in cardboard boxes on mudslide hills, they are going to find a way to get into the United States because we've always been the land of opportunity. And I think we want to continue to be the land of opportunity, but within reason. And we certainly have to control our borders.
What about the involvement of the federal government, the way the president has been deploying troops and just that general interfering in the workings of our state from that level?
Well, that is a step in a very wrong direction in the way, and I think that's going to be costly for Greg Abbott's and the National Guard to Illinois. That's just not really the role of the Texas National Guard, to be going up to Illinois to help out ICE agents. And so, I think there's overreach and gone too far, and people are seeing it, and I think there's going to be a hard rebuke of that.
One more, talking about the federal government and interfering with the workings of Texas, the redistricting and the way that came down from the president asking the governor to change things up. How would you have reacted? What could be done differently? And what do you think of this whole redistricting?
Well, we have a governor who spends about 50% of his time thinking about being president and the other half kissing up to one. And I'm not going to be a governor who sits by the phone and waits for the president to call and tell me what to do. And that happened with the redistricting, and it happened with the National Guard that I just referenced. And you asked me a minute ago, what was a moment? That was probably a pretty big moment. I went to testify before the House Redistricting Committee and just I thought it was very eloquent. I just told them, this is so stupid. And and it was. And it was back when it happened, when I went through it and got redistricted out of my seat. And not so much for me, but my colleagues. We had so much experience at that time. The U.S. House of Representatives works on seniority, and we were in a position to chair the Rules Committee and chair the Homeland Security Committee, all these key committees. We were going to have chairs from Texas, all wiped away because of redistricting. That's just foolish. And you're not doing yourself any favors when you engage in this, and we've seen what it's led to with California quickly responding. And that is just not the way to draw congressional districts, and it's not the way to run a government.
Here's a yes or no question. Will you veto any anti-LGBTQ bill and protect trans kids with an executive order on day one? Yes or no?
Yes. And that's really always been my record. Frank, I know you said I couldn't say anything beyond yes, but has anybody ever followed that rule? Not just saying yes, especially a politician. We always have to talk more.
Well, that's a YouTube question.
But no, I think treating people fairly and recognizing, all people are entitled to basic human rights has always been a part of both my political and personal makeup, and nothing about that is going to change. And we really need to move away from issues that aren't hurting anybody and start focusing on things that really are going to make a difference in people's lives. I think that will alleviate a lot of the toxicity that we see in politics. And we need to understand that not every issue has to be a partisan war. And a lot of things I'll be putting on the table during the course of this campaign are things that I hope a lot of folks can get excited about.
We are speaking with Chris Bell, a former U.S. representative who announced he is running for governor. If you would like to join the conversation, you can call or text 713-440-8870.
Probably the biggest problem people have in this country right now, or at least perceived big problem, is the economic disparities we see. Economic plan for helping Texans to feel more secure in their future financially.
First of all, I think that goes back to education as well. I have a belief that excuse me, when a child graduates from high school or an individual graduates from high school, they should be one of two things, either ready to go to college or ready to go to work. And the latter, we haven't done a very good job about, or very good job of. And there are a lot of apprenticeship programs, internship programs through unions and others where kids could be learning a trade while they're in high school, graduate, and come out and make a very good wage and live a very nice middle class, sometimes an upper class lifestyle, because those jobs are so much in need. And we really need to be looking at that. We shouldn't just be shuffling people through high school and just say, oh, we just need to get them out and go on, and it doesn't make any difference. And, years ago we got away from that and decided everybody needed to go to college. That was the only thing that mattered. And I think there have been shifting views about that. Still is very, very important. But we can't lose sight of vocational education, and we did for a long time. And I think that would have a big impact on the future of the state. And there are other programs. I'm not ready to roll them all out because we're still doing some fine-tuning. But it's not just about affordability, but it's also about livability and opportunity. And it's that last point, the opportunity, that is oftentimes lacking. And I think the state can do a better job of creating opportunity for young people.
Recently the state passed, the House passed a bill, a $20 billion water infrastructure bill. Was that the right move? What are your thoughts on that? Because we understand that is a main priority for the governor.
Huge. And we've been talking about water, Celeste, for a long time and not doing a whole lot. So that was certainly the constitutional amendment was a move in the right direction. It's probably going to cost a lot more than that. It's not easy. It's certainly not an easy issue in a state like Texas. But you look at what's going on in Corpus, where they're really literally running out of water.
Right.
And we can't, and that's going to be repeated in other parts of the state unless we get really serious about it. And I assure you, I would be, I hear a lot about it where I live now. There's a lot of concern.
And, Texas is also very interesting, right? Because you mentioned Corpus Christi, South Texas. That's where I'm from. And it's very different from, West Texas, or you have very major cities like Austin and Dallas and Houston. As the governor, what is your vision when you're looking at the state from a holistic view, how you are going to work with all of these different pockets of the state to make sure that everybody is essentially benefiting from the policy that you're putting forward?
And you really have to come in with that knowledge and that idea and recognize that they're so different. If I can just share what I think is a great story, because most of you all will remember years ago, and it must have been 20 years ago when we were having huge immigration marches. I think there was a giant one in Dallas, and there was a huge one in Houston. They've gotten a lot of news coverage, and I was in the Valley campaigning, and I said, y'all must have had a huge protest rally down here, didn't you? And they looked at me and they were like, what were we going to protest? We run everything here.
Right.
So,
right.
And it was really true, and people don't understand that. And folks kept trying to talk about sort of the seamlessness between border towns and their Mexican counterpart. Right. And it's very hard for someone living in Houston to completely understand that. But there are, because of the vastness of the state, there are different concerns in different areas.
Yeah. Well, to that point, it's easy to look at Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, and look at the blue that's there. But you're going to have to do more than that. It's going to take more than those 4 cities, and not only do you got to find more Democratic votes in the big cities, you certainly got to find a lot of it in the rural areas.
Well, and you have to stop discounting what people in rural areas are concerned about and recognize there are going to be very, very different views on issues between rural and urban areas in a lot of cases. And that needs to be addressed. And you can't just say we're only going to craft solutions that are going to appeal to big city folks and forget about the impact that's going to have on the rural areas. And I just don't think we have done a very good job of communicating with the rural areas.
A lot of people make a big point about always talking about the first 100 days, what happens in the first 100 days. If you get this governorship, first 100 days, what are the 3 priorities that we will see as people that you have pushed forward?
Well, I'll certainly push for proposals. Excuse me. I will certainly push for proposals to have some model schools set up so that we can really start looking at AI and the impact it's having on certain private schools and how it's working. I will certainly put folks in places where they can make recommendations in terms of improving public school education, try to come up with not just Chris Bell's ideas, but ideas from all over, because that's been a big part of my frustration. I think we know what works when it comes to teaching kids, but I don't think we're taking full advantage of it. So that's certainly something on day one. Another one of my initiatives that I'll be rolling out later, I will get to work on that absolutely in the first 100 days, and it has a main focus will be on opportunity. I will certainly start looking at ways to reform campaign financing in the state of Texas, because I think that's going to be dramatically important going forward. And I would make sure that we immediately start identifying the dangerous areas.
Unfortunately, I have to identify we're out of time. Thank you for coming in.
Well,
the
thank
clock
you so
beat
much
us.
for having me.
Yes, Chris Bell, former U.S. representative who is running for governor next year. Chris, again, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, we're going to talk to members of the Mars Society, and we're also going to have our top headlines in the second hour of Hello Houston. Stay with us.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
COP30, the UN Climate Conference, wraps up this week in Brazil. Political leaders, activists, scientists, and business lobbyists have convened, but not there, the Trump administration. What does the U.S. government's absence mean for the future of COP? And a decade after the Paris Agreement, what is there left to negotiate? The future of global climate policy, next time on 1A.
It's on today at 2 p.m.
It's easy to suffer from information overload these days. Social media posts that just keep scrolling, bite-sized headlines sent to your phone and even your watch. I'm Ira Flato. Every week on Science Friday, we take a step back for a longer look into the big ideas in science. Take a deeper dive with us.
It's all on Science Friday from WNYC Studios.
Science Friday, every Friday, 1 p.m. on News 88.7. Support comes from UT Health Houston, home to Dr. Ramesha Papana and the Fetal Center team, who pioneered a prenatal patch to help babies with spina bifida walk earlier and better. More at uth.edu/manyfaces.
Support comes from Specs Wine, Spirits, and Finer Foods, Texas family-owned and operated since 1962, offering wine, spirits, and gourmet bites, including whiskey pecan pie for the Thanksgiving holiday. SpecsOnline.com. The fun starts here.
Gonna have a sunny day today with our high getting up to around 85. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, U.S. Senator Ted Cruz is signaling the possibility of a 2028 presidential run. We'll discuss this and more as we continue diving into today's top stories. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. We'll also talk with Texas Monthly contributor and author Skip Hollandsworth about his latest book, She Kills.
And I'm Ernie Manous. We'll also hear the latest installment of Interviews, in which I catch up with Fort Worth resident and I've Never Been to Me singer, Charlene.
And we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is visiting the White House for the first time since the 2018 killing of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. While taking questions from journalists a short time ago, an ABC News reporter asked President Trump if this visit to the White House, that's expected to include announcements of defense, energy, and AI deals, is a conflict of interest due to the Trump family's business with Saudi Arabia.
I have nothing to do with the family business. I have left, and when I've devoted 100% of my energy. What my family does is fine. They do business all over. They've done very little with Saudi Arabia, actually. I'm sure they could do a lot. And anything they've done has been very good. That's what we've done. We've built a tremendous business for a long time. I've been very successful. I decided to leave that success behind and make America very successful.
The same reporter asked the Crown Prince his thoughts after U.S. intelligence concluded he had approved Khashoggi's murder in 2018.
It's been painful for us in Saudi Arabia. We've did all the right steps of investigation, etc. in Saudi Arabia, and we've improved our system to be sure that nothing happened like that. And it's painful and it's a huge mistake, and we are doing our best that this doesn't happen again.
Prince Mohammed has denied involvement in Khashoggi's killing. President Trump railed against the reporter for the question, describing it as disrespectful to his guest. Survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's alleged sex trafficking network spoke out on Capitol Hill today with a bipartisan group of lawmakers. NPR's Claudia Grisales reports this comes as the U.S. House is on track to take up a bill today to force the release of government files tied to the disgraced financier and convicted sex offender.
Survivor after survivor told harrowing stories of the abuse they suffered, and many asked President Trump to stop injecting politics into their fight. Jenna Lisa Jones said pushing for the release of the Epstein files has been distressing as Trump has gone back and forth on supporting it.
I voted for you, but your behavior on this issue has been a national embarrassment.
Trump had fought the House vote to release the records, but reversed course this past weekend to say Republicans should vote for it. Now the GOP-led House is on track to approve the plan with near unanimous support, sending it to the Senate. Claudia Grisales, NPR News, the Capitol.
A judge has approved a settlement of thousands of opioid-related lawsuits against Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin. And under the agreement, members of the Sackler family who own the company will contribute up to $7 billion over time and give up ownership. The opioid epidemic has been linked to more than 900,000 deaths in the United States since 1999. At last check on Wall Street, the Dow was down 538 points. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. Texas National Guard troops deployed to the Chicago area have left Illinois. That's according to reporting from the Chicago Tribune. According to a memorandum obtained by the Tribune, the troops departed an Army Reserve training facility southwest of Chicago yesterday at 1 p.m. 200 Texas Guardsmen were sent to the Chicago area back in October to support President Trump's immigration crackdown in the Windy City. The troops spent one day guarding an ICE facility there before a federal judge blocked their deployment. The judge, however, allowed them to stay at the Army Training Center, where they spent most of the 41-day mission. The University of Houston chapter of Pi Kappa Phi has shuttered after a student was hospitalized. News 88.7's Tom Perumian reports.
The Beta Nu chapter of Pi Kappa Phi chose to surrender its charter after an investigation into a November 3rd incident where a student was hospitalized, uncovering potential hazing. UH officials call the events deeply disturbing and say they represent a clear violation of the university's community standards. Pi Kappa Phi also responded, saying the decision to close the chapter was made after an internal investigation into reports of hazing and related misconduct. And the story doesn't end there. Members participating in hazing will face disciplinary action up to and including expulsion from UH and potential criminal charges. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
One of the last remaining space shuttles is on track to move from the Smithsonian Institution in Virginia to the Johnson Space Center in Houston. But to move it, the Smithsonian says it will have to take the shuttle apart, potentially damaging it. Now a grassroots group of activists led by Joe Stieff is asking Congress to intervene.
There's a significant risk not only that the nation's premier aerospace institution could lose a critical part of its collection, but that this artifact could literally be ripped to pieces in the process.
You can hear that story plus what's next for the shuttle coming up this afternoon on News 88.7 In Depth. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher's dedicated team of specialists provide resources on investing, retirement income, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Wow, we're back.
Yes. Interesting conversation with Chris Bell.
Yes,
It'll be interesting to see what happens. For a lot of folks, he's a new name, but for those like Frank and me, he's an old name.
I've known Chris and Allison a long time, and I like them both. Yeah, you know, he's going to have a tough road to hoe. There's no question.
Yeah.
Do you? We were talking earlier, Ernie, and Celeste. What's your thought? Do you think that we are really set up to have a blue wave in this state?
I don't think necessarily from our governor, if I'm being fully transparent. I don't, but I do think that the Democratic Party still has equity within Texas. Yes, on more of a regional level.
Yeah.
And less of a state level. I think that the hope would be that finding that candidate that understands we are a conservative state, and people still value conservative values. However, people don't want to be told and pushed on their religion and certain ideologies that don't sit well. And people want our education systems to be left alone.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a big mistake coming from our governor. The truth is when it comes to our schools, as a parent, I can tell you this much. I don't want to know about it from a political standpoint.
Well, true conservatism is don't tell me what to do.
Right.
When you don't want the government in your face telling you what to do.
Yeah.
And it's turned It sort of
shifted a bit.
Yeah, it shifted so that this far-right Republicanism is, we're going to tell you what to do, what to put on your school walls. We're going to tell you what church you need to go to, what religion you should have, what should be in your libraries. We're going to be more and more in your world than maybe you bargained for.
And I think that the governor, that is going to hurt him extremely in this race because of the education aspect of it and his stance on it. The vouchers we're looking at, because when you look at it from an immigration standpoint, people like how strong he is. When you look at it from an economic standpoint, people say the Texas economy continues to grow. And you look what is going to hurt him most. And I think it's that he's been meddling too much in the vouchers and the education aspect of it.
Well, and I think that we're watching a shift in the far right even as we speak today, and what's going on with the Epstein files and the release of that, Marjorie Taylor Greene and her new positioning or repositioning herself. And I think 2 weeks ago, I would have had a stronger feeling that there was going to be a full blue sweep, because people, like after the election, people were so dissatisfied with what was going on. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is, in a sense, putting a sense of balance back in there, a little hope of working across the aisle, which may dilute a huge, strong blue wave. She may actually be having made a bigger impact on politics across this nation than people are thinking right now. But it goes back to when Lena Hidalgo got in as county judge. It didn't matter who was running on the Democratic side for judge that year. Everyone was so dissatisfied with Republicans, they were putting every Democrat in. That's why the state changed the law about straight ticket ballot, so you couldn't just vote party. I think if it had stayed this way and it continues to be this tension there, Chris has a much better chance, because if he gets the nomination, there's a chance, a rare chance, a Democrat could get into the governor, could get into Senate. You could see that. I think you're going to see a little thawing happening right now with what's going on with Epstein. So it's going to be interesting, very interesting to watch. As we said today at 1 o'clock our time in Washington, they're going to take the vote on the release of the Epstein files, which is expected to pass the House. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. We've gotten a lot of comments about it. Les sent a text that said it's pretty much given the files are scrubbed of Trump mention. A lot of people are talking about that.
I don't know that that's a given. Why does he say that?
Well, actually, somebody from was it the CIA, the FBI, said that they had been instructed to redact where Trump's name was throughout it, and all Republicans, and leave just Democrat names in.
You think that's true?
I wouldn't be surprised if it were true. Let me say that. Yeah, so that what we're going to get may not actually be. James from the Woodlands is calling in at 713-440-8870. James, what's on your mind?
Yes. Hi, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure talking to you. So, okay. So I had a question, but I'll just start with a quick comment that you were saying there's a thawing and many people are endorsing the Epstein files being released. Well, I think after the last election, I think the Republicans saw the burning bush on the road to Damascus, that not supporting that was really going to hurt them in the next election cycle. Moving forward, okay, I heard that it was unclassified files of Epstein. So that makes me think that there's also classified files of Epstein. I could be wrong, but if President Trump's name is in documents, they can easily say that it's classified and not released. So what do you think about that?
I think, and again, I'm probably speaking from the same point you are in just a brief understanding of all of this, that the idea is that this bill that they're putting through, it's just not releasing documents. It would be law that they must be released, is for classified documents to be released, with understanding that certain things for national security or would give up witnesses that had been promised anonymity, and also to protect the victims, that would all be redacted, but that even classified documents would be released with those. One of the arguments that Mike Johnson is making is that the bill that would be voted into law is not going far enough to protect the victims, though victims' rights groups say that does not carry water, that's not the case. But I think that's That's what's at tension here. That's what's being discussed. And you don't know what's going to be redacted. The bigger issue is that if other court cases are moved forward, which is what the president asked for at the end of the week last week, and Pam Bondi said that they were on it, if there are open cases, they can then hold back files saying that that would impede a current investigation, and therefore they will keep some of it pulled back.
I don't know if MAGA will put up with the Texas two-step on this.
We'll see.
Well, we're going to release them, and we're not really going to release all of them. We're going to release just a few of them, and we're going to redact this and redact that. The MAGA far right may say, no, we want everything. And so this might, if they don't just release everything, this might haunt them into the midterms.
Yeah. Let's grab another. Oh, Celeste, you're going to say something?
Let's go to Anna from
that's
Montrose.
What you're going to say.
Yes, let's go to Anna from Montrose. Anna, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I love listening to y'all's show. I had a comment about Marjorie Taylor Greene, kind of recent
recentering
change of heart.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Some additional context that I had got from AOC answering a question on an Instagram video, someone asking her about kind of up close and personal what Marjorie Taylor Greene's actions and, if everything was genuine, essentially. And her take was that Marjorie Taylor Greene had wanted to run for governor of Georgia, and Trump did not support that and shot her down and told her basically not to. And that AOC's perspective was that all of Marjorie Taylor Greene's actions since have essentially just been kind of revenge against the administration and their lack of support for her. And that, in a personal level, she had not really noticed the substantial change. And so I just wanted to kind of add that to the mix when we're talking about, the good things that she is advocating and saying. There is possibly a personal.
Anna, I want to jump in here. Yes, what you're talking about has been talked about. Marjorie Taylor Greene was on CNN and has done a whole bunch of other interviews over the weekend, and that was brought up to her, and she said that she had no intention, nor had she asked the president for endorsement to run for either a Senate seat or as governor of her state. So she was denying it, but as we say in politics, oftentimes the truth gets reevaluated later on as the story continues to come out. Thank you very much for calling in, Anna. We have Andrew Schneider just joined us in the studio with some breaking news. What do you have for us?
The federal court in El Paso has ruled that the state cannot use the redistricting map that it approved over the summer to redraw the congressional maps in time for the 2026 elections. Basically, it's a major blow to the state. It's not clear immediately whether the state is going to be able to appeal in time to make use of the maps next year. The decision comes 10 days into the filing period for candidates to file for the March primary, so there's not a whole lot of time left for the courts to intervene if, as expected, the state were to appeal.
Wow. That's some breaking news, Andrew. Thank you.
So give us some context, Andrew. What exactly does this mean for us in this area?
Well, a lot of the districts that were redrawn were right here in the Houston area. The District 9 was shifted over from South Houston, where it's been a Democratic stronghold for decades, into East Houston and Liberty County, where it was designed to be a Republican pickup district. As a result of that, Al Green, who was the longtime congressman from District 9, decided that he was going to run in District 18's primary. District 18 was redrawn with a good part of the old District 9 as part of it. So this is potentially an effort that could help whoever winds up winning the runoff in the 18th Congressional District special election, which was just set yesterday for January 31st. In addition, District 29, which had been included in what was the redesigned District 9, was truncated in the redistricting process. It was turned from what had been a largely Latino district into one with a much larger African American African population. That potentially set off a primary contest between incumbent Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia and a number of African American Democrats. It's not clear whether any of those challengers will go forward with their challenges under the old map.
And this may be too soon to tell, and so your thoughts, but with Texas being stalled here at this point, California isn't. Could this then throw off the balance of power in the U.S. House?
It could, depending on whatever legal challenges come through to California's case, because Republicans have already decided that they're going to challenge the maps in California.
So, Andrew, did the court give any reason, or have you had time to look at the reasons that they gave, or they just struck it down?
I have not had a chance to look at the reasons behind this, and it's not entirely clear to me whether this is a flat-out strike down of the maps or whether this is simply an injunction, which is what the parties that were suing initially asked for. That they had specifically asked for the maps not to be used in time for the 2026 elections while their larger suit was going forward.
So just to be clear with this, so then we proceed with the current maps until any other movement happens.
That is correct.
But the current map is also being
the current map legally. Is also being challenged. The lawsuit against the 2025 maps was folded into the lawsuit against the 2021 maps, which was also being challenged as an alleged unconstitutional racial gerrymander.
But at this point, we go with those maps.
Exactly.
Wow.
No
Anything
word from
else?
the governor.
Yeah, no word from the governor yet. We
Not yet. No.
Anything else, Andrew, you think we should know about this, or will you continue monitoring it?
I'm continuing to monitor this. We've been watching this obviously for several weeks in anticipation of a decision. We were told initially that it would be coming down sometime before the start of the registration period for the primaries. As I said, we're already 10 days into that registration period now. So this upsets a lot of people's plans, and it's not clear, for example, what's going to happen with Congressman Green, whether he's now going to re-register to run on the 9th, or whether he will proceed with going ahead to challenge in the 18th.
So at this point, though, the next step would be to move it to the Supreme Court?
More than likely, it would be moved up to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals rather than a direct appeal to the Supreme Court. Okay. But I would imagine that because regardless of which court it's appealed to, it's unlikely to be resolved in time for the 2026 election cycle.
Crazy. Wow. Thank you for that,
Andrew Schneider is Houston Public Media politics and government reporter. You can find more of his coverage at houstonpublicmedia.org. Andrew, thank you for joining us with this breaking news.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, wow. I mean it's been a busy day.
That's some breaking news.
Yes.
That really is a big blow to the Republican Party. I mean, especially here from a state level.
And nationwide, so much has been put into action because of what was perceived to be happening here in Texas. Like I mentioned, in California, they went to the ballot box. It was voted in by the voters. They have less of a chance of being restricted by a challenge than we had in our state. And so it's going to be fascinating to see what happens next. But that's not all the political news going on.
Yes, U.S. Senator Ted Cruz is laying the groundwork for a 2028 presidential bid by pumping up his feud with Tucker Carlson. By poking at Carlson's isolation foreign policy views, accusing him of anti-Semitism and more, Cruz is putting himself on a collision course with Vice President Vance, a Carlson ally widely seen as the 2028 GOP frontrunner. According to Axios, the senator also is diving into issues that are tearing up at President Trump's MAGA movement, namely differences over Israel. Cruz, the runner-up to Trump in the 2016 GOP primary, has been taking steps toward a presidential run. Cruz will need to reckon with a Republican primary electorate that has largely abandoned its George W. Bush era support for an interventionist foreign policy in favor of the more America First approach that Carlson and Vance support. Well, what do you think? Does Representative or Senator Cruz have a chance?
I think he does, especially against Vance.
Yes, 713-440-8870.
When they were talking, and I believe it was during the shutdown, and Cruz was kind of coming out a little more about, we shouldn't do this, we should move, we should find a way to all this. I'd said, I think you guys said on the air,
Yeah.
It's because Cruz is planning to make a run for president.
Yeah.
He's trying to move away and kind of try and find his own lane.
And he's run before. So, you run before, you want to run again.
He, on paper, before that, you would have thought he was an unlikely candidate, but he did very well in the primary process and went very far. So he's not an outlier. He is definitely in the thick of it. It'll be interesting to see. It's going to be with everything going, it's going to be a reckoning for the Republican Party to figure out who they are as these Epstein files come forward and the dissension and Trump theoretically being a lame duck president. What happens next? It's like a great soap opera here. 713-440-8870. What do you think about all this?
I don't know what to think, except that I think he has a chance.
I'm still reeling over the maps that Andrew just
I know, and I was
gave.
looking for more on the maps. I couldn't get an idea of whether it was a 3-0 vote or a 2-1 vote. And it's most assuredly going to be appealed.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
But will any appeal work between now and the midterms?
Well, according to what Andrew said, there wasn't enough time for it to proceed. So that's really fascinating. But we're working with a map that's also being challenged. So depending on if a decision comes out about that map too, could that throw us back to a 2010 map?
Maybe.
I don't know how that works if the one in 2021 gets thrown out also.
This news, and you can also go to houstonpublicmedia.org for more. But coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Texas Monthly contributor and author Skip Hollandsworth about his latest book. This is News 88.7.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
The University of Houston system, governed by the UH Board of Regents. Information about open meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
This week on This American Life, there's a spot in Mackenzie and Isabella's house that's perfect for eavesdropping on their parents. It's a small sitting nook on the second floor, right at the top of the stairs.
So you can hear everything that's going on. They'll have the door closed and you can hear murmurs. We're kind of in the shadow. Like, I know what's going on, but I don't know exact things.
What they've been overhearing for the last year and what they think of it this week.
This American Life, Wednesday night at 9 p.m.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe. R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul. Music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Baylor College of Medicine. With 125 years of innovation behind it, Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, and care that push the frontiers of modern science.
Support comes from Stewart PC, a Houston law firm assisting executives and employers with executive employment agreements, litigating executive compensation and non-compete agreements, and management training. More at attorneysforexecutives.com.
Support comes from the Clarion at Brazosport College, presenting jazz clarinetist Anat Cohen with Corticino, November 21st at 7:30 p.m. Tickets and more information at brazosport.edu/Clarion.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
A 3-judge panel have blocked Texas Republicans' newly redrawn congressional map, and Houston Public Media politics and government reporter Andrew Schneider is back with us on Hello Houston to discuss with the latest details. Andrew, what can you tell us?
Well, this was in fact an injunction blocking the maps preliminarily as the courts continue to review this case. But what the court found was that the the state had erred in following the Trump administration's letter, which kicked off the process. It was a letter from the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. It said that it was legally incorrect assertion that the 4 congressional districts in Texas, which were originally the center of the redistricting, were unconstitutional because they were coalition districts. In other words, majority non-white districts in which no single racial group constituted a 50% or plus majority, and that effectively in following this letter, the state had produced a racially gerrymandered map. Now, while partisan gerrymandering is considered legal under a previous Supreme Court ruling, racial gerrymandering still is not. It is still considered a violation of the Voting Rights Act and the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. And as a result of this, it said, for these and other reasons, the plaintiffs' groups are likely to prove at trial that Texas racially gerrymandered the 2025 map, so they preliminarily enjoined the map from taking effect.
So,
Wow.
Andrew, how much of this will have an impact on next year's midterm election?
It will have a significant impact if it's allowed to stand, and currently there is not a whole lot of time for a higher court to intervene. Generally, courts, circuit courts and the Supreme Court tend to be very reluctant to intervene in the course of an election. That would effectively mean that the 2021 map, which is the map which was previously governing the state of Texas's congressional districts, will be the one to be used in 2026. That effectively sets back the state legislature's efforts to try and pick up 5 seats for the congressional map for the Republican Party.
So if what you're saying is this was gerrymandered on racial grounds, and that's why it was struck down by this court, they'll have a very tough time appealing this.
Again, it hasn't been struck down by the courts. It's been a temporary injunction has been issued, which means that while the case is being decided formally, and this could go on for months or even years, as it has been already been going on, it simply means that this map cannot be used for this election.
Wow.
To clarify, my understanding was that the argument that they were using all along in this was you can redistrict whenever you feel right to redistrict. The problem being that the way they went about it is what was the problem, not the fact that they decided midterm to redistrict.
That's effectively true. They argued when they came time for the second round or the second special session, and they reintroduced the legislation to do the redistricting while Democrats were still out of the state. They changed their argument to basically say we're doing this on purely partisan grounds. But the fact was that in the initial round of special session, the initial special session, they specifically cited this letter from the Trump Justice Department, which made this argument that the courts found to constitute racial gerrymandering. And it's because they actually proceeded with that as part of their initial move to redistrict that the court found that it had to intervene.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Wow.
Thank you for the reporting.
I was going to say, what are you going to be doing the rest of the afternoon? But I have a funny feeling I know exactly what you're going to be doing.
I have an equally funny feeling. I know exactly what I'll be doing.
Houston Public Media Politics and Government reporter Andrew Schneider. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. We will continue to monitor the latest. We do have request outs for statements for different elected officials as we are covering breaking news.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is crazy. The maps in this area, in this state, are going to be quite fascinating. And the impact, if you think it's just a state issue, it is a national issue depending on the balance of power in the U.S. House of Representatives, which could then affect how everything works in the Trump administration.
Yep. You know what else is fascinating? Our next segment. And we are joined by Skip Hollandsworth, the acclaimed Texas monthly writer, known for his gripping and deeply reported true crime storytelling. He truly is a legend in the true crime genre. He's here to talk about his newest book, She Kills, a collection of some of his most unforgettable stories about Texas's most notorious female criminals. The book brings together decades of reporting, fresh updates, and the human-centered storytelling that's made Skip a favorite among readers, podcasters, and even Hollywood. Skip, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hello, thanks, you guys.
Now, Skip, like I said, I mean, you really have made a name for yourself in the true crime genre in the world. What was it about these stories specifically that stood out to you, besides the fact that they're all women?
Because they're why-done-its and not who-done-its. And I've always been interested in stories about people who aren't hardwired to commit crimes, who don't necessarily have a big profile, who don't have any history. They can just be sort of wallflowers attached to no one and living these quiet lives when something starts bubbling to the surface. And they do things that are so unimaginable that you wonder, how could that have happened? Mm-hmm. And that's why I began to get involved, just sort of got interested in writing crime stories. It's not because I'm depraved and like to write.
Well, it's not because of it,
but your point, the why done it, and especially with women. I mean, we are misogynistic in the sense that we just don't expect women to do the dirty crimes that men do. And when they do it, it really piques our interest. Like, why in the world did this happen?
It sends us into a tizzy. It's for as much as we think we've changed as a society, women remain the gentler sex. Mm-hmm. And so when a woman like Susan Wright of Northwest Harris County stabs her husband 193 times, and then goes to Ben Taub, where she checks herself in and says that she thinks he's still alive and that he's coming after her, where he's been abusing her for years. How do you ignore that story, Mm-hmm. Or what's another good Houston one that's in the book? Candace Mossler. Mm-hmm. In the 1960s, she was one of the great socialites of Houston. Lived in River Oaks in like a 30-room mansion, threw gigantic Gatsby-like parties, was this little blonde, petite, who wore high heels everywhere she went, and began to fall in love with her nephew, who was like 21 years old. And they began carrying on an affair. And at some point, the police charged her with persuading her nephew boyfriend to go kill her husband. And he did. Wow. And they were acquitted because, as the New York Times said in describing this as one of the most spectacular trials in criminal history in America, the defense attorney Percy Foreman, I'm sure y'all know that name, mm-hmm. put on this show of capturing her as this innocent sweetheart Christian lady of conviction, and got her acquitted. And I'm telling you, I would dig through those trial transcripts from the 1964, when she got as much media attention as Jackie Onassis. Wow. And I just thought, how could this be? How could that jury of 12 men not know what she had done?
Yeah.
Or decided to quit her anyway. Well, sorry, I'm going on.
Well, did they live happily ever after? She and the nephew? I'm just curious.
In River Oaks, in her high heels?
Well, she and the nephew never, had a few moments in the public after the trial. And then, according to one source I interviewed, she tried to shoot him.
Okay, then.
Well, as Frank was alluding to earlier, as armchair profilers, we never think of a woman as a mass murderer. It's always the guys that get it. When it comes to individual cases, and from the studying you've done, is there really that disparity? Do men commit more murders than women, or are women getting their equal time?
Women just don't get caught.
I think women, I think the figure is that 8% of the murders in America are committed by women. It is still a male-dominated profession.
So to speak.
But then, does the motivation?
As far as serial killers go,
yeah,
I think it's higher. It's like 13%.
Really?
But yeah, and it'll be like nurses,
yeah,
who walk the hallways. I write about one of the nurses in the town of Nocona who was so proud of her job. She wanted to be the Florence Nightingale to that town. And she was a little overweight. She was not attractive, but she was devoted to the people of the town who ignored her, who just basically, cast her aside when they came to see their patients or their relatives in the hospital. And one day she decided she was going to get her revenge. And she began to fill IV bags one day after another with a medication called mivacarium chloride, I think, which is a respiratory, stops you from breathing so that you can intubate the patient. And no one understood who could be doing it, because it couldn't be Nurse Vicky, who was beloved in that, who not beloved in the town, but was known in that town as a very competent nurse. But no one went to find out who had betrayed her or mistreated her years and years back. And everything from a 100-year-old grand dame of the town who used to slap her wrists, spit on her, to when she would come into the hospital, to a guy that tried to invite out her daughter, and she said no, and when it was all this sort of planned farce, and she didn't go, so Nurse Vicky killed him. And one after another, these people would begin to die off. And finally it occurred to somebody, Vicky's getting rid of all the people that have offended her.
Ooh.
Don't forget the Dairy Queen
You've never heard of this. You've never heard of this case, right?
Right.
Well, until I read about it in your book, and then she would go to the Dairy Queen after killing people, and I guess have a hot fudge
Dairy
Sunday.
Queen.
Yeah, that Dairy Queen in
have
Nocona.
2 tacos, green salad with ranch dressing, and iced tea sweet.
Now,
Get the order right, Frank.
That
Get
explained.
the order
Well, that
right.
explained the weight. That's for sure.
Now, Skip, I mean, clearly you know these cases. I mean, you mentioned digging through files from the 1964 case. Now you're telling us Vicky's order after she murdered people. In many cases, you are, in many ways, like a detective, putting these clues together and putting these stories and chatting with people. What is your process? Are you able to go back and talk to relatives?
Like a Truman Capote.
Yeah. Talk to us about your
Truman
process.
Capote made up half of that book. Yeah, I hope y'all know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I'm just thinking of this. Maybe it's because I don't like writing really that much. I'm not that good of a writer. Now, I love chatting with people.
Yeah.
And so, I would much rather spend a day getting a detail like Vicky owned 56 or 26 nurses' uniforms that she kept neatly pressed scrubs in her closet.
Wow.
And I just think the more detail, when you do a story, y'all know this, when you do a story, your first interview is fine. Your second interview is fine. Your third interview, the goods start coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to be patient. And that's the thing about Texas Monthly. I mean, we're not on daily deadlines, and I can take a year to get a story done.
Yeah. So your first murder, so to speak, the one that happened when you were 16 and you covered sort of from afar and never really got to the bottom of it, the socialite that kills her husband, the oil wildcatter, and then herself, we think. We don't know why. Did you ever do? What's your speculation on that motive? Or will you ever find anything?
I was 16. Back then I grew up in Wichita Falls.
Right.
Back then I didn't even know anybody who had been arrested, I don't think. I was like the son of a Presbyterian minister, very sheltered life. And then I heard about this killing where a wildcatter named Bobby Burns, great oilman, was shot to death by his wife, Abby, who used to fly their private plane down to Dallas from Wichita Falls so that she could buy nightgowns at Neiman Marcus. And she shot him, according to the medical examiner, then got in her bed and shot herself, and the gun fell to the floor, and she pulled off a murder-suicide.
Crazy.
Wow.
And no one knew why. No one knew why. And I sort of started the Hollandsworth Teenage Investigative Agency back then. I was just determined, I was transfixed. And it's hard to understand why the story of people who go up and cross a line that the rest of us don't really do. You know, they walked up to this line of normal behavior and crossed it.
Mm-hmm.
So why did she do that? The rumors 50 years later are still rampant about that case in my hometown.
Do you find, Skip, that when you do have a woman who is essentially the central of a murder, she's the murderer, there seems to be a little bit more of intrigue and question and what happened around it? And do you think that women tend to just snap?
Well, you know, there's that show on the Oxygen Network called Snapped.
Yeah.
Been going on for I don't know how long. It's the last like 20 years.
Yes.
And I don't think anyone snaps. I think there's something that builds a corrosive resentment, a long hidden jealousy, and it just at some point bubbles its way to the surface. But I just don't think the woman's living a normal life and then suddenly goes crazy.
Yeah.
Well, even Lizzie Borden got off.
Lizzie Borden?
Yeah. She was found not guilty of axing her parents to death.
Yikes.
And
It's crazy.
Well,
we'll keep up the good writing.
Where can people find your book, that She Kills?
Amazon. That's where I found it.
Well, it's titled She Kills. It's at Amazon. It'll be at Murder by the Book on Bissonnette. What's the name of that? Bissonnette.
Yep.
And you can read these for yourself. And I would recommend you read about this woman who began dressing up as a cowboy and began robbing banks in suburban Dallas and kept it up for years.
Wow.
Oh, Skip, so many more questions we would love to ask. You have to come back and share more of your stories with us.
I'm here to serve.
Skip Hollandsworth is a contributor for Texas Monthly, and his book, She Kills, is out now. Skip, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Sure.
Good luck.
Coming up on Hello Houston, Representative Sylvia Garcia will join us to discuss the latest on the redistricting of the maps. Thank you so much. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Hi, I'm Michael Schaefer. My partner Ellen and I have been proud supporters of public radio and TV for decades.
We really would be lost without our daily fix of unbiased national and local news, cultural programming, and great entertainment.
But with recent federal defunding, stations like Houston Public Media face real challenges.
Now's the time to step up.
Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Thank you.
Hour brings you film.
The themes in it are so far ahead of their time.
Books.
The detail is amazing.
Art.
There's all the personal stuff.
Theatre.
Lots of singing and dancing and colours.
Music.
The dance floor is made for dancing.
And everything in between.
I want it to be exciting.
That's the Arts Hour with me, Nikki Beatty.
I really identified with it.
From the BBC.
The Arts Hour, Friday nights at 9 on News 88.7.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, Ken Burns' series The American Revolution continues. After the Americans abandoned New York City, Washington's army regroups before attacking an outpost in Trenton. Tonight at 7 on TV8.
Support comes from Visit Galveston, presenting winter events across the island, including Holiday in the Gardens, Polar Express train ride, and attractions welcoming visitors during the holiday season. More information is available at visitgalveston.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
We have been following a breaking and developing story today about the maps, the newest congressional map that had been decided upon, but it turns out it's not going to happen. Rejoining us now is politics and government reporter Andrew Schneider. Just to give us a quick recap on what we've been talking about today, and then we have a very special guest joining us.
Right. So the short version is that the three-judge panel in El Paso issued an injunction blocking the 2025 redistricting maps from taking effect in time for the 2026 election. This is not a final ruling. This is an injunction, which basically means that the maps cannot go forward for the next congressional election, the midterms. The decision was based largely on the premise that the legislature had acted in response to the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department in response to pressure from President Trump to try and redraw several congressional districts on what they called racial gerrymandering lines.
Now, one of the districts that was affected by that new map was Texas 29. We have joining us right now Democratic Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, who currently represents Texas 29. Representative Garcia, thank you so much for joining us. Your reaction to what you're learning about this?
Well, obviously, I'm elated. We said all along during every hearing that I attended, I testified at all of them in the House and in the Senate. We all spent much time, and we kept saying, these are racially gerrymandered maps, and now the judge has agreed. They, in fact, say substantial evidence, Ernie, not just evidence, but substantial, meaning there was a lot there that shows that these maps were racially gerrymandered, and so they enjoined them, which means we will proceed with the election under the current maps, and nothing changes unless, of course, they file an appeal and the Supreme Court makes some changes.
Representative Garcia, I mean, I would imagine that this is going to be expected. It will be appealed. When we're looking at the timeline of that, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the Supreme Court will have to act fairly swiftly because obviously we have a March primary. I think it's March the 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. And the tax assessors, if there's any change that impacts any precinct, has to redraw maps. They've got to issue the voting cards. They've got to tell people about the changes. They've got to start the military mail-in ballots. All that has to be scheduled. And it's my understanding that all that does have to be done soon after the December 8th filing period when it ends. So it's not something that can take a long time. But I'm hopeful that the Supreme Court will see the substantial evidence on racial gerrymandering in this case. They'll see that even their own witnesses were frankly called on for being disingenuous. They made mistakes in even the DOJ letter. One of their witnesses was basically his veracity was questioned, which means, you know, I don't think the judges were convinced that some of the folks that testify on behalf of the state were telling the truth.
Ms. Garcia, do you know if this was a three-person vote with the judges or a 2-to-1?
No, it was 2-to-1, and some of us had kind of suspected that just by the nature of the makeup of the court. But I think what's important to say here is that I don't think that, we're pouring through it. It's 160 pages. We just got the copies. We haven't read it all word for word, but I don't think I saw a dissenting opinion. So I think that if there is an appeal, that again, hopefully the Supreme Court won't take it, but if they do, they must act on it fairly quick. Courts, generally speaking, don't like holding up elections. They just don't like doing that.
So the understanding then is that we will proceed with the 2021 map into the next election cycle at this point. If the Supreme Court does decide anything, even if they put a stay on this order, is there still a chance that we would use the 2021 map until it is decided and rectified with the 25 map?
I would think nothing can change unless the Supreme Court says it has to change. And again, that's why it's imperative that if they do anything, that they act quickly, because obviously It's not just about, my election. It's about the entire state. And, we have a very large delegation. We've got, I forget how many counties right now. I think it's over 5. I mean, every county has to do something if the maps change. Again, they've got to prepare precinct lines. They got to redo maps. They got to send out voter registration cards. They got to set up. So you don't cripple a system that way. You've got to act swiftly.
And I don't know if you'll know the answer to this, but if you can help me with this. So the order, what we have is that these maps, according to these judges, were done along racial lines. Are they saying re-explore and redraw the 2025 map, or are they saying this map is no good, therefore nothing happens?
I mean, I will read you exactly what they're saying. I mean, This is a direct quote. Substantial evidence shows the Texas racially gerrymandered the 2025 maps. Here's why. And they detailed why in 160 pages.
Right.
Now, I haven't had time to read all 160, but I've kind of gleaned a lot of it. And it looks like they went into some detail talking about individual expert witnesses and calling to question their veracity, calling to question their memory, questioning the DOJ's inaccuracies and misstatements. For example, in my district 29, they called it a coalition district. It is not. District 29 currently is not a coalition district. It's a Latino opportunity district. What they did was dismantle it and made it into a coalition district, exactly what they were intending to eradicate. So they kind of just, it's interesting to read because they kind of are saying, so we don't really know why you're bringing this up, because it's not really what you said it was in the letter. And more importantly, the law that you're relying on isn't even law that applies in this case. So, it's, I've been a judge, I've been a lawyer when judges are not happy with you. It looks like these judges were not happy with some of the statements that were made in front of a court. And remember, lawyers are officers of the court. You're expected to be truthful. You're expected to state accurate facts, and no judge wants to be misinformed. So it's clear to me that the substantial evidence is there, and that the DOJ had acted inappropriately. And that's what we said all along, Ernie. At every hearing, Democrats consistently said that these maps were racially based.
We're receiving this 10 days into the filing period for the new for the registration for the March primaries. How is this going to affect people who have already filed in one district if they'd been presuming that it was going to be the 2025 maps rather than the 2021 maps?
Well, I don't know anyone that has filed for a district in anticipation of. Some of us, like myself, I've already filed because mine is 29 and it's state 29. It just has different geography. It changed 70%, but the number remained the same. So we were actually advised by lawyers that if you were anticipating having to file in a new numbered district because of the changes, that it best you not file yet till the courts said something, because otherwise you would have to refile under the new configuration and new number. So I think that most that they would have to refile again for whatever their preference is, and they may have to pay yet another filing fee. But again, any candidate today is going to do kind of wait and see if it gets appealed and whether there'll still be some direction from the Supreme Court.
So do you have any insight what might happen in California?
In California? No, but I sure do thank them. And I say that all the time. I miss Governor Newsom when he was in Houston. I had a family event that I had to attend. And I thank Governor Newsom. I thank Speaker Pelosi Emeritus, who raised all those dollars for such a great effort. I think they're facing a lawsuit now that some of the detractors and the naysayers have filed. So it's possible that something will happen there, but I don't know for sure.
So if the movements that are going on in other states because of what happened in Texas, and we look at California as one of the primary examples of it, if those move forward, then we are shifting the balance in the U.S. House of Representatives. And it looks like with this ruling, if the others all stay put, it would shift more Democratic, correct at this point, or don't we know as everything is evolving?
Well, you could look at the numbers. They hope to gain 5, and the courts are saying now, no, you can't change the maps. And California changed their 5 in response to our 5 to kind of even it out, which then means that the Democrats now are at a plus 10. But I expect Florida to change maps, and I think those will change to favor the Republicans. So bottom line, it's still early to tell who makes the net gain. To me, the losers are the voters because it's going to get so confusing. This is very chaotic. And to do this every time there's a new person in office based on election results is just not what the intent was under the Constitution. One person, one vote is that it's to protect the voter. So the voters get to decide, not someone in Washington at the White House dictating. Because it's obvious. The other thing that was obvious just from all that I've read in the opinion is that,
Thank you. U.S.
We're at the White House. I mean, it clearly came from the White House. We always argue, but now we know it's true.
Yes, thank you. U.S.
so
Representative
much.
Sylvia Garcia of Texas 29th Congressional District. Thank you for joining us on Hello Houston. And Andrew Schneider is Houston Public Media's politics and government reporter. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is a developing story. You can find more at houstonpublicmedia.org. And that does bring us to the end of our show. We've run out of time. We want to thank you for watching and listening to Hello Houston. We will be back tomorrow with more conversations.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kavachi. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Central Market. Chef-prepared meals, platters, sides, and desserts.